Alright everyone, today is an interesting day because both of the political videos that I'll be making have to do with the same Omnibus bill. The latter one, the second one, deals with the Cloud Act portion of that, which is concerning for reasons that have nothing to do with wasteful spending. What I see right now, let's just analyze the fallout from Trump saying, okay, yeah, after all, I will sign the omnibus spending bill, which is basically, Rand Paul has, on his Twitter, has put out a series of details about why it sucks. And it does suck. Now, it sucks when Congress doesn't bother to read something and then passes it. Doesn't it always seem like that's a little bit of a problem? Now, keep this in mind. I see some people, they're like, yeah, I'm a Trump fan. I can vouch for the fact that they're actually Trump fans, and they have been consistently. So they're not just lying to me and shilling. It's not just Democratic shit posters, although some of it may be. They're like, yeah, I supported Trump, but this is fuckery. I'm just going to vote for the Democrats to punish these people. Trump has failed. The GOP will lose the midterms and stuff. My first thought is, don't be quite so draconian. You understand the midterms are quite a ways away. That's plenty of time for Trump to magically change his mind again, or another spending lapse to happen, or any of a million other things to happen. This has nothing to do with the midterm election. Plus, number two, there were Democrats in favor and Democrats against, like Rand and Wyden, I think, were the two that pointed out the Cloud Act part was a problem. And Wyden is a Democrat, is sort of a blue dog Democrat, and Rand, of course, is sort of a paleocon who leans kind of libertarian on some things. Like, he's a pro-pot Republican, so he's not exactly John Dole or something. He's not exactly a bitch McConnell or a Paul lame-ass Ryan. We gotta look at it, though, from a realistic perspective. People have a short attention span. This is really, really great when it comes to the GOP surviving the midterms despite helping to pass this stupidity, which is exactly what it is, because within a month, very few people will care that it was passed. If the economy continues to do okay, and I realize the stocks are having problems, but that's not Main Street, and it's just one part of the Trump economy. It would be definitely Trump's policies that brought the market down when you look at the tariff war, but then again, if he wins the tariff war, it'll probably go skyrocketing back up. But the GOP can easily still retain control of the House and Senate. It's not beyond the realm of possibility, because even if you get a depression of the core Republican fan base and turnout or something, there's really no reason to believe that the Democrats are going to be systemically doing better than normal. And the map alone, the demographics of the regions that the Democrats have to defend, especially with regards to the Senate, puts it in question of whether they can actually retain the, even some of the seats they've got there. They might lose support in the Senate even if they do well, which won't look good for them. It certainly means possibly split government, but it doesn't mean the Republicans become powerless and Trump magically goes the way of the dinosaur. It also doesn't mean Trump loses in 2020. But some people are saying they might defect to the Democratic Party. That's just about the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. That's a lot like people saying, well, Obama done goofed, so I'm going to vote for the Republicans. Fuck the platform, the ideology, or lack thereof, it doesn't matter. I'm going to vote for the other big party that basically stands largely for the same thing. With the exception of Trump and Rand and a few others, the Republican Party is very much like the Democratic Party, minus a few people like Sanders, who's actually a leftist, or Wyden, who actually cares about civil rights. Most Republicans and most Democrats in the government are very similar. Now, a lot of times you see a refutation of this from the establishment press or certain groups associated with them. They'll say, oh, you look at this and actually, you look at Democrats and Republicans, they're very different on issues. Yes, if you poll average people, they're quite different. There's a big gap between them. But the two parties, by and large, there's no gap there. Virtually all the people in Congress are rich. Virtually all of them are on the older side. There are demographics that they have in common. A lot of them are urbanites. A lot of these people that end up representing some rural district aren't themselves rural. It's like Bush's having power in Texas despite being New England vacationers. It just doesn't, born and raised in Connecticut, but yeah, I'm a true-blooded Texan cowboy. I've got a ranch and an oil well. That's basically what W does. But it's like the W's and the Clintons are the ones that primarily like this kind of bill. If you are angry at Trump or angry at the Republicans, the reaction isn't to vote for the other party that helped pass the omnibus spending bill. That's moronic. It doesn't make any sense. Not going to do you any good. At that point, it doesn't matter whether you have Democratic or Republican control. And for a lot of things we've seen, it doesn't matter. The Republicans have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. Despite this fact, some of the things that they're talking about are fundamentally similar to what the Democrats wanted. The Paul Ryan ACA overhaul, very early on, first few months of the presidency. Wasn't it basically just Obamacare, only the private companies would be the ones you pay the fine to if you have lapsed insurance instead of paying it to the government? Trump has to come in, unilaterally dismantle the mandate, and then drop the issue like a hot potato because there's no way to reform it. The Republicans want to retain most of the wasteful aspects of the ACA. The few people who said, well, we need more competition to be injected in deregulation, they get drowned out by a chorus of neocons and neoliberals. It's never going to happen. You're not going to be, at this point, it's the law of the land and probably always will be. Obamacare in some form is probably there to stay. Which is shitty. It shouldn't be the way that things work, but it probably is, unless it gets torn apart by a future Supreme Court, which it probably never will. It'll be a tax on people intermittently. Any time that someone who's a neoliberal is in charge, they'll restore the mandate, because Trump's just deciding to basically ignore it at the executive level without actually removing it. So basically a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It's a fix temporarily, but it's only a fix so long as President Trump is there. I appreciate that extra 2% of income not being taken away. It's not a huge amount, but it matters to people who are making higher amounts. But it's not a permanent fix. With gun control, we've seen Trump is like, oh yeah, we're going to go after the bump stocks. Oh yeah, all this other stuff is on the table. Now he rescinds that, but there are still elements within the GOP who are cowards, who have backed down to the Democrats, who ultimately, trust me, the Democrats don't care if children die. If they did, they wouldn't have been in support of Obama's drone program. They only care about the optics of the situation, using it to grandstand for elections, and there are plenty of Republicans that'll do the same. Hell, Trump tried it out. When he realized his core fans hated it, he very quickly changed his mind, because it was never an authentic view. And I hate to say it, but that Trump mentality of, hey, I'll do a little A/B testing here, see which opinion I should take. Number one, it's not actually that bad for the country. It's almost a democratization of policy in some cases. It can be, at least, which is, for better or for worse, depending on the scenario. Number two, a lot of people within D.C. do the same. They're just not as open about it. They're not as transparent about the fact that they do A/B testing by putting out some press release, see how people react, and then make up their mind truly and legally according to what the public will is. It makes sense from a campaigning perspective. If you ever want to seek office again, it makes sense to ingratiate yourself to the majority of people within your state. It's just the way the business should be done, from their perspective as elected officials. But here's the thing. The Omnibus bill shouldn't be passed. The House and Senate overwhelmingly supported it, which is, again, moronic. The fact that Trump takes a call from Mattis, right? Mattis calls him up in the immediate wake of him saying, well, maybe I'll have to veto this because I'm not so sure about it. And then he ends up, hours later, he puts out a release, oh yeah, I will sign it after all because of national security concerns. Now, what specifically in the bill relates to national security? It doesn't even necessarily, the logic doesn't quite follow. But I have a feeling Mattis' phone call probably made him sign it. Maybe Bolton's war is looming and Mattis is like, well, we're going to need these bits of military spending, and we can't have a shutdown. It'll lapse and the program will be basically worthless. We're developing all these bombs and rockets and stuff to go to war with Iran like John says he wants to do. Or maybe any of a dozen other countries, North Korea. Let's have World War III with Russia already. It's almost like with Bolton and Pompeo joining his ranks, or Pompeo's case, did he even actually confirm him yet? I'm not 100% sure. But with all of these warmongers and pro-big state establishmentarians now circling around Trump, it does seem it's not great. Yeah, for people like myself who are on the libertarian side, who don't like the establishment, who are actually authentic when we said that it would be great if Trump drained the swamp, that actually would be a good thing. Not even joking about that fact. For us, yeah, this is a net negative to Trump. But you've got to keep in mind one other thing. When he signs the Omnibus bill, when he talks about, maybe gun control's okay, when he talks about all these things, when he pretends to be, at least, an establishmentarian. There are centrists who actually breathe a sigh of relief because they think he's crazy, and now they see that the Democrats can't argue that he's doing something wrong with this bill. They can't say he's doing anything wrong. They voted for it too. They didn't want a shutdown. You think Trump coming out and saying, okay, I'll sign it, is essentially, hey, they can't stand in his way or else the shutdown gets blamed on them. They know that the midterms come up. It's way easier to blame Congress for a shutdown, especially in the House, because they control the purse strings, than it is to blame Trump. If Trump had said, I'm vetoing it, he could have trotted out any of a million excuses as to why something in the bill didn't make sense and needed to be excised and put back before him and say, get going, essentially, on the wall and DACA and things. I still think that he will get his wall. That's something that's hopeful to look forward to, I suppose. But the spending bill shouldn't be passed. The Cloud Act portion of it warrants its own video because it's so bad, and that particular addition, which was added as a rider in order to escape normal debate procedures, it's like, yeah, nothing slimy is going on here. We purposely made it so people wouldn't have any clue what's in this bill. We don't know what's in it, but, it looks good to us because it says Omnibus. It's written in legalese, so, we'll read it after we pass it, and then we'll find out what we actually authorized here. Should be against the law for them to do such a stupid thing. By the way, they need to fucking streamline spending bills in general. They need to shrink the size of government back to an appropriate level so we don't have this problem where you can never read the bill. It's too expansive, number one. And number two, every year, every 6 months or so, we have a looming government shutdown. They keep trying to raise the debt limit again and again and again and again. It's like there is no end. You do realize that. There's no actual end in sight for any of this stuff. It's never going to be achieved. They're just going to keep up the circus, the illusion forever. That's about all. Peace out.